at 5:00 a.m. I woke to diesel growling through my bones, a bulldozer carving a yellow grin through the apple trees my dad planted, blossoms crushed into mud under my boots, while a woman in a blazer waved a folder and said, "Relax. Mr. Barrett, you signed the compliance permits." I stared at a clean black signature that wasn't mine and felt that metallic taste you get when fear hits. First, then I laughed because of all the neighbors in Red Bluff County she could pick. She bulldozed the county permits director, and for 15 years every shovel of dirt in this place has crossed my desk. You ever hear a forged document how quiet it is compared to the truth, like paper pretending to be law? You know what I mean? My name's Cole Barrett. 3rd generation on 40 acres. My grandfather bought when the ground still remembered more hoofprints than tire tracks. My dad turned scrub into neat rows of Honeycrisp and Gala. Stitched graft to root the way a good man stitches history to tomorrow. And when his heart attack knocked the wind out of us, I took the steady county job to keep the lights on. Ironic for the guy who signs permits to be the one trying to save farmland. But hey, life's full of strange math. She showed up in January with Desert Sun on her license plates and lawsuits in her purse. Marla Kensington, 52 going on. Queen moved into Cedar Hollow Estates and started treating our quiet like inventory first month. She filed 47 violations on neighbors' heels, clicking across courthouse marble like a metronome for bad news. And when she slapped me with a $15,000 remediation fee for an alleged irrigation issue, she produced a compliance agreement with my name in a signature so crisp it smelled like toner. Not coffee and sweat. That happened. That night, I laid her papers beside my dad's old farm journals at the kitchen table. One pile smelled like arrogance and brand new leather. The other like dust and work. And I read until the coffee went cold, because paper never blinks then at dawn. I did what I'm good at. I went down to the basement stacks where maps live, and old plans go to nap. Pulled zoning records from 1987 forward called. In my deputy. Lena called in my buddy Hector Torres, who everyone calls Hank. And under buzzing fluorescent lights, we made a timeline long enough to trip a liar. Our land was grandfathered, agricultural in 1994, with signatures and approvals and environmental assessments. Meanwhile, her original map used section numbers that didn't exist until 2003. The county seal was wrong, and the surveyor she cited had been dead a year before that map. Supposedly existed, you don't need law school to know. A ghost can't certify a boundary. She hit back with drama, a 6:00 a.m. knock, and a thick envelope that said I was operating on residential land and had to shut down within 30 days. Because apparently, trees that have produced fruit for 30 years suddenly became an emergency. Then came the uniforms. 3 guys with bubbling lamination on their badges, telling me my trees were diseased and had to go in 14 days. I asked for credentials. I called the state. The state asked if I was filming a prank. Their van was a rental with Phoenix plates and magnetic decals that probably cost less than my dad's church suit. So I escorted them off while my trail cams blinked red in the hedgerows, catching more truth than 10 affidavits. A week later, our real county inspector, Phillips, showed up sweaty and nervous with a condemnation notice for my irrigation. My little camera. And the birdhouse caught him afterward, behind the clubhouse, as Marla counted out bills into his truck. The envelope swallowed his hand up to the wrist like a raccoon in a cookie jar. And if you've ever heard the crunch of fresh gravel under expensive heels, you know it's the sound of someone stepping on your throat with a smile. Our neighborhood started shrinking into itself. The Dempseys got hammered with fines until bankruptcy papers sat by their coffee pot. Widow Martinez got cited for unauthorized vegetables, tomatoes, for heaven's sake. And the HOA patrol, which was just two guys in a black SUV with more muscles than brains, crept our road, taking pictures of mailboxes. Like our mail was contraband beers in a small town. Isn't screaming, it's porch lights turning off earlier, and curtains not opening as wide. Then my accounts got frozen. After an anonymous tip said, I took contractor kickbacks. Fake invoices appeared. Photos of me taking cash where I'd never parked. Try telling your harvest crew you can't pay them, because lies borrowed a federal letterhead. You know what I mean? And while that circus ran, we traced educational conferences for 3 commissioners to Vegas, all paid by Desert Sun Consulting. Funny coincidence. Same address as a Phoenix law firm tied to Marla, and the local paper ran editorials using her exact permit language, like someone forgot to change the phrasing on the copy and paste. Hank rolled blueprints across my kitchen table. One foggy morning, his steady hands shaking for the first time since I've known him. A 200-room resort. Swallowing my orchard, and 3 neighbors' golf fairways drawn straight across the county wetland. Preserve, like protected meant. Optional. And the plans were dated 6 months before she moved in. So this wasn't a fussy neighbor with a clipboard, this was a land grab with a calendar. I walked the irrigation pond where my dad used to skim leaves and thought about how greed talks in documents, not in voices. So I opened the GIS, layered her filings over real boundaries, stared until the screen painted. My eyeballs blew. And there it was. She'd claimed 2 acres of county wetland as her own, while her environmental surveys conveniently forgot. Endangered habitat. In our ponds next morning. I held a tiny salamander smaller than my thumb and understood that little creature had more legal teeth than any HOA letterhead. In the state, the twist came buried on page 73 of her environmental impact assessment, a clause that read, development rights contingent upon cessation of agricultural use within the impact zone translation. Kill my orchard, and you kill the rural zoning protections that keep concrete from swallowing us, my land as the Keystone card pullet. And her house of cards stands tall. For one ridiculous second, then falls in slow motion. We built a team. My cousin Nico filed responses like flapjacks on a hot griddle. Agent Sarah Ellison from the FBI didn't smile, but had that look like she was about to finish a puzzle and arrest the puzzle. Hank agreed to wear a wire because he said he'd dealt with worse from picky hot tubs. Lena built what we called the paper trail of doom, with tabs and stamps and dates you could see from space, and Brooke Whitman, an investigative reporter who documents every breath, cued a story to drop the day before the county council vote. I filed the environmental complaint at close of business on the 13th. The FBI planned warrants at 6:00 a.m. on the 14th council showdown on the 15th. And when you stop playing defense and remember you control the whistle time, suddenly obeys. Marla must have smelled smoke because at 3:00 a.m. on the 12th, floodlights blasted our fields, chainsaws whined. An out-of-state crew started emergency remediation, like trees were contagious. I called the EPA at 3:15 by sunrise. Deputies taped off the site, and federal jackets stood where my dad once taught me to prune engines went quiet and relief sounded like wind in leaves. She pivoted to brute pressure, tried to buy a commissioner with 50 grand in a manila envelope, like we were in a black and white cartoon. Tried to smear the sheriff with photos from a poker night that turned out to be the church fundraiser for veterans, Anonymous letters printed on the same office paper with the same laser stripe. Showed up in mailboxes, our neighbors started collecting license plates, and wouldn't you know it? Phoenix rentals lined up like ducks. My truck tires got slashed in the county garage, and whoever did it left fingerprints on the valve stems and a Desert Ridge hotel receipt on the ground. I sat on the tailgate and laughed. If you're going to frame me, at least use gloves. The groundbreaking ceremony arrived with crisp October air and politicians sniffing for cameras. Investors in sunglasses shifting like they wished they were somewhere cleaner. Marla wore a suit the color of money and held a golden shovel like she'd just met manual labor. "We overcame corrupt local obstruction to bring prosperity," she said into a mic, and I stepped forward from the back with a manila folder and a portable screen. "I have a question about your permits, Ms. Kensington." I set the GIS overlay down her boundary in blue wetland buffer in red, the shiny podium planted where she didn't own a blade of grass. "Your applications contain 47 false statements. You filed through shells that ladder to your Phoenix operation, and you've claimed protected land. You do not own." I clicked to the photo of Inspector Phillips taking a bribe in his truck. The crowd made that low human sound. Truth always pulls from a room. Marla waved a packet like a shield. "We have all federal approvals," she said slowly, and Agent Ellison stepped up, badge catching the sun, Marla Kensington. "You're under arrest for wire fraud, mail fraud, bribery of a public official, money laundering and racketeering conspiracy." The handcuffs clicked. Cameras chattered. A commissioner who'd come for a photo op slid away like smoke, and I didn't gloat. I just watched the wind move a wetland flag on a stake and thought about how small paper can be and how big it sounds when it tells the truth. In the weeks after justice did what it does, when somebody has laid the tracks straight. Marla took a plea to dodge the kind of sentence you measure with both hands. 3 officials learned Vegas perks. Don't translate to good behavior in Red Bluff County. The HOA that choked our street with letters got dissolved by court order. The Dempseys added coops. Widow Martinez's tomatoes won at the fair, and she pretended not to care, while taking 30 pictures. The orchard joined an expanded preserve, school buses roll past, and kids point at dragonflies and salamanders with the same awe. Some folks save for skyscrapers. We planted new trees not to replace the old. You can't replace old roots, but to tell the ground we're still here. I'm not naive. Corruption has a taproot. The week it all wrapped, a permits a director of one county overcalled me with the same pattern. Different villain. I looked at our saplings, throwing thin shadows, and said I'd be there in the morning, because sometimes doing your job right is the only bravery required, and sometimes the rules really do protect what matters when you refuse to sell them to the highest bidder. So tell me, if you were standing on that lawn with a golden shovel hovering over land that wasn't hers, would you call what happened justice or overreach? Can HOAs protect a neighborhood, or do they just bake discrimination into paperwork? Where's the line between development and destruction? Drop your take in the comments. Tell me where you're watching from. Share the worst thing an HOA or developer ever pulled on you, and if you want more real fights where ordinary people win. By knowing the rules, hit subscribe and tap the bell. Let's keep the lights on for each other.